Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video, I'm going to be showcasing a very powerful Fantasy Cup team that you can use to gain elo. Now this team is built around the incredible synergy between Melmetal and Mimikyu. Mimikyu, when it was finally unbanned, made a massive splash in Go Battle League. The fact that it has the built-in shield mechanic just makes it an incredibly powerful pick. Melmetal does a really nice job at shutting down the Pokemon that Mimikyu doesn't want to see, and vice versa, making these two basically the perfect duo. And in the middle, I'm just throwing my XL Turtonator because Turtonator is just a very strong neutral pick across this meta. So, without further ado, let's hop into the matches. We pick up a pretty okay lead in the first match, leading Mimikyu into Sandslash. Unfortunately for me, this is actually a Shadow Claw Sandslash, which means they are hitting for super effective damage. Even so, Mimikyu is still going to do very fine here. I'm able to get nice damage with the Shadow Sneak, and I'm going to be no shielding as my Disguise gets busted. Now my Disguise getting busted here means that I will be taking more damage. I'm going to farm up until right before they throw their move, switch into the Turtonator, and get the Catch and Sneak. Unless they read the switch out and went for a Drill Run, that's only going to be a neutral Ice Punch, and now my opponent's going to send in Tapu Fini. My Turtonator is completely walled here, however Overheat is an incredibly powerful move. 2 Overheats should come pretty close to taking the knockout here. Overheat number 1 is going to connect, they're going to fire off a charge stack, and I'm always just going to be letting this go. If I get knocked out, so be it, but Turtonator is barely able to survive, making it to Overheat number 2. Now this is a double debuffed Overheat that will not take the knockout, but look at this, I can send in Melmetal and go for a nasty farm down. Now I'm up a massive amount of energy, and my opponent reveals they have Empoleon in the back, so they are just triple weak to Melmetal. I encountered so many teams that were very weak to Melmetal. Melmetal was just such a consistently strong core breaker. In comes the Sandslash opponent trying to get the catch, but I'm just going to look for the full farm down. I put up the shield as they go for the Drill Run, and now I exit with the back-to-back dynamic punches loaded. I'm not in Hydro Cannon range, this game is definitely over. Hydro lands, that's not a problem whatsoever. This is the shiny rank 5 Melmetal for the Ultra League. I've had it since 2019. It's never really been a particularly strong pick in the Open Ultra League, but in this Fantasy Cup, Melmetal is incredible. There are so many teams that just get core broken to smithereens by Melmetal. If Melmetal is able to basically avoid Turtonator as his main meta weakness, then it's just so incredibly powerful. In this case, my opponent was triple weak to Melmetal, and we take the win. Picking up a bad lead in the next match, Mimikyu into Clefable, but I'm able to get a catch of the Meteor Mash on a Turtonator. Not only is this a very nice resisted catch, but it actually keeps my Disguise intact. Now that is critically important, because now I still have that built-in shield for later in the game if I need it. Flygon fires off the Twister, Turtonator survives, and XL Turtonator is just such an absolute beast. We survive, pressure away shield from the Flygon, and that's basically the best case scenario. I guess one other Pokemon that Melmetal wouldn't want to see would be Flygon, so this is a really nice bait out. Flygon will bust the Disguise with the Sand Tomb. I'm now at -2 defense. They repivot back into Clefable. I bank a ton of energy and send in Melmetal. And Melmetal is just so dominant into this Clefable matchup. Clefable can launch Moonblast after Moonblast, and Melmetal just simply does not care. Ideally, I do want to try and overfarm in this matchup. I want to try and exit with as much residual energy as I possibly can. Double Iron Bash does really nice damage on a Clefable, but will not quite set up a farm down. In the Ultra League, Thundershock, it's not known for its damage output, so I'm going to build up to the back-to-back Double Iron Bashes and just remove Clefable from the field of play. I have so much energy stored on the Mimikyu, I have a shield advantage as well. In comes Flygon. In the back, my opponent has their own Melmetal. Melmetal is a very strong answer to Mimikyu. Normally, Mimikyu would get destroyed here, but because I basically started the matchup with 100 energy, I'm actually going to be able to take the win. That's another very big plus for Melmetal. Melmetal completely obliterates Mimikyu. It takes this kind of an energy head start for Mimikyu to actually be able to flip it. My first Shadow Sneak landed for big damage, my second got the final Protect Shield, I have a ton of energy stored on the Melmetal as well. This game is over. In comes Flygon, hoping for the Shadow Sneak catch, but they're just gonna get one shot by the Play Rough, and then I can pivot my Melmetal into theirs, and I should be one-off Dynamic. In comes Melmetal, Dynamic Punch is reached, and the energy advantage on Melmetal that was stored earlier in the game is just game winning for us. I do absolutely adore the Melmetal feint animation there. It just like melts into the ground like you put it in a microwave. We pick up a bit of an awkward lead in the next match, leading Mimikyu into Empoleon. A lot of Mimikyu trainers will put up shields to keep the Disguise intact. I tend to use the shield right away if possible, just because I view it as an opportunity for me to save shields for my backline. So even though I'm going to be taking extra damage now, I can fire off the Shadow Sneak, actually get a Protect Shield, and then just pivot into the Turtonator. Turtonator has a very good matchup into Empoleon. Obviously, I do have to try and land the overheat, but they've already taken quite a lot of damage. Hydro Cannon lands, I wait the turn, no catch comes through, and I'm full set of the overheat. I want the final shield or the knockout. My opponent lets Empoleon go, and they're going to bring in Giratina. Unfortunately, I am now 2 stages debuffed from the overheat. Dragon Claw does a decent amount of damage normally, but at -2 attack, Giratina is not going to care about this damage whatsoever. Giratina continues a massive farm, and now I have a tough choice to make. Do I put up the shield, try and save the energy? I decide yes, so I save the energy, I pivot in Melmetal. It's a simultaneous switch, Melmetal into Mimikyu, and that is basically the best case scenario. I fire up the Double Iron Bash. I don't end up charging it because I know it's never going to do any damage into the disguise. They can fire off the Shadow Sneak, but the speed at which I can spam out Double Iron Bashes is a huge problem for Mimikyu. I'm already at Double Iron Bash number 2. My opponent's going to have to put up the Protect Shield here, or they would lose a ton of their HP. I'm already getting very close to another. My opponent is going to save the Mimikyu and make a nice catch onto Giratina. That allows him to store quite a lot of energy on the Mimikyu. I decide to stay in with the Melmetal. My opponent is going to fire off energy. They do not want another Double Iron Bash to land, and now I can bring in Mimikyu. I see a pretty clear path to victory. Farm down, and the moment they make it to a charge attack, pivot into the Turtonator. If I don't get the catch, I can just click the Dragon Claw and win the game, or if I get the catch, then I can just farm down with the Mimikyu. My opponent pivots into their own Mimikyu, hoping to snipe down with the Shadow Claw, but I fire off Shadow Sneak. Shadow Sneak will pick up the knockout. They were already at -1 defense. Back in comes Giratina. Giratina falls as well, and that's a good game. We move to the next match, Mimikyu into Galarian Weezing. This is a pretty cool pick for my opponent. Now, Galarian Weezing will be able to hit for super effective damage with Sludge, but obviously I have the built-in disguise, so the first charge stack, I'm going to be taking no damage. I'm not really too worried about my defense being debuffed. My opponent's actually the one who pivots out, and they send in Doublade. Doublade is a very cool defensive typing. Unfortunately, Doublade can't do anything in a Turtonator. Based on the Ghost Steel typing alone, I imagine Doublade probably has some play in this meta. However, the Turtonator matchup looks absolutely horrendous, purely off of Incinerates. I haven't even thrown a single charge stack. They are now going to be into the red HP. I can farm to 100, fire off a Dragon Claw to take the knockout, and keep my attack stat intact for when they bring in the Weezing. This is going to put me only 1 away from the overheat. Weezing's already down a shield. They're going to have to decide, do they want to take massive damage on the Weezing or give up the final shield? They no-shield, Weezing gets rocked. I bring in Melmetal, and Melmetal will be answered with Shadow Latias. This is a pretty spicy pick, so I have a lot of respect to my opponent. Unfortunately, Latias is in a no-win position here. Latias is down a shield, it's down energy, and it's really going to struggle to impact the game in any meaningful way. The speed at which Melmetal can spam out these Double Iron Bashes is just absolutely horrendous for my opponent. Latias has super effective Aura Sphere, and they just can't even get to it nearly as quickly. I'm able to make Double Iron Bash after Double Iron Bash after Double Iron Bash. I can pivot into Mimikyu, pressure a switch out from the Weezing, and I'm always going to put up the shield. This guarantees Latias will have to throw its energy into the Mimikyu, and once its energy is gone, it can't win the game. And my opponent realizes it, and they will concede the match. We move to the next match. Mimikyu going to be leading into Regidrago. This is the dream lead. Regidrago throws a Dragon Breath, save switches into Galarian Stunfisk, and you might be a little bit surprised that I haven't sent in Turtonator. I'm reading this as a Turtonator bait out. Stunfisk actually has quite a bit of counterplay into the Turtonator with access to Earthquake, so I'm just going to stay in, play it out for a little bit, and then once it gets some damage out of the Stunfisk, look to bring in the Melmetal. I don't think Dynamic Punch will quite KO here. It's going to be pretty close, but Stunfisk, even though my opponent's looks like it is slightly underpowered, should still be able to hang on. So Stunfisk will be able to pressure away a shield, but I'm not too worried about that. I'm going to have a full health Melmetal, and it's not like Regidrago can do a lot of damage there anyway. My opponent did go for a very nice Rock Slide bait. I'm going to CMP-tie Double Iron Bash onto the Earthquake, and I feel very comfortable double shielding here. This Melmetal is going to be really annoying for my opponent to deal with. If they're sending back in that Regidrago, Regidrago's going to have a pretty bad time, and that's exactly what they're going to do. So I've kind of put their Regidrago into a no-win scenario. Wherever it goes, it's not going to end up in a good matchup. I fire off Double Iron Bash. That does do some pretty okay damage, but I'm pretty sure Dynamic Punch will hit harder. So I fire off Dynamic. That's nice damage onto the Regidrago. Regidrago can go for Dragon Energy, but my Melmetal is still easily healthy enough that I will be able to hang on. I want to guarantee the knockout here or the final Protect Shield, so I will full send Dynamic. Dynamic will be shielded, and getting the shield back should pretty much guarantee the win for me. They will be able to take the knockout here with Vice Grip, but I still have a pretty healthy Mimikyu. The disguise is busted, but I have some energy on it at the very least. In the back is Registeel, and we made the read. It was a Turtonator bait out. They were running double Steel in the back, and Turtonator's here to shut it all down. My opponent goes for the zero bubble flash cannon, and they will concede the match. We've got a mirror lead in the next match, Mimikyu into Mimikyu. Now, winning charge type priority here would be very nice, but unfortunately, I do not win it. My opponent's going to win charge type priority, and this is a rare scenario where I will actually put up the protect shield. This is because I want my disguise to stay intact, because I'm taking super effective fast move pressure in this matchup. Now my Shadow Claws are doing way more damage than theirs, and now I can bust the disguise here and then go for the full farm down. This will allow me to exit with a ton of energy. I'm going to be down a shield, but I will have switch advantage. And switch advantage seems like it could be pretty helpful into a Mimikyu lead team. My opponent sends in Giratina, and unfortunately, I'm not going to make it to the second Shadow Sneak. I just didn't have the health available. Shadow Sneak will be shielded. I'm in a very rough spot here. Giratina's pretty good into both of these back two Pokemon. I decide to send in Turtonator. Turtonator at least can survive a Dragon Claw, but man, unfortunately, I'm going to be losing a lot of my health to do so. My opponent tries for a catch, they send in the Shadow Weezing, and I'm full sending Overheat. Overheat is going to connect, that's big damage, and I stay in with the Turtonator, but unfortunately, this is where Incinerate is really bad on the new system, because when Brutal Swing knocks out, that health gets refunded to my opponent. That is by design. That is the new damage registration error mechanic, and that's part of what makes the 5-turn moves a lot worse on this new system. Now, I will be able to get the full farm down here, which does still give me a chance. If my opponent is not running Shadow Sneak, if they're on Ancient Power Dragon Claw, I think I can actually win this game. If they're on Shadow Sneak, I'm probably going to lose, but either way, I have enough energy that I'm still going to play it out to the end, and they do have Shadow Sneak. Unfortunately, I think that means this game is going to end in a loss. I'm not going to give up here, but the writing's definitely on the wall in this one. Melmetal's speed is just absolutely insane. We're able to make double Iron Bash after double Iron Bash. I'm able to get the shield away from my opponent, but they do have the Shadow Sneak there, and that's basically going to seal it. And if I had two Shadow Sneaks here, sorry, not two Shadow Sneaks, two double Iron Bashes here, I would actually be okay. But unfortunately, we only have one. That does get the opponent low, but my Melmetal melts to the ground, and we take the loss. We move to the next game, seeing a pretty familiar lead, Mimikyu into Clefable. I really love this play of catching the Meteor Mash on 5. It keeps the disguise intact, and with an intact disguise, suddenly Mimikyu has a really good matchup into Clefable. The Clefable actually threw a Swift at me, so maybe there's Swift Meteor Mash or Swift Moonblast, we'll have to see. There's Swift Moonblast, that Moonblast did a ton of damage. Out comes Galarian Rapidash, and that is an incredibly cool Spice Pick. One of the reasons I really like playing a lot of these limited metas is people will just run the coolest Pokemon. Rapidash will fire off 4 Fairy Winds. I'm always just going to be no shielding here. They go for the Wild Charge as it takes the knockout, but now I can get extra energy on Mimikyu. And Mimikyu energy should go pretty far here. Back in comes Clefable. They're always going to be going for the Swift. Now I'm okay letting the disguise get broken. I thought about going for another catch there, but up this much energy, I decided that I really didn't want to concede switch advantage. I farmed to 100. I wasn't sure if Shadow Sneak would guarantee the knockout here, so I full sent to Play Rough. Play Rough lands, Clefable is going to fall. In the back is a Fire Fang Reshiram, and this could get very, very scary. Mimikyu's disguise is busted. I'm in -1 defense. The Fire Fangs are adding up quite a bit, but it looks like I should be able to make it to a Shadow Sneak. My opponent perfect counting their CMP ties on the Shadow Sneak. They're going to go for the crunch as they're fishing for a debuff. Thankfully, no debuff comes through. I'm going to get the final shield here and then pivot into the Melmetal. Melmetal is going to be taking some pretty significant damage here from the Fire Fangs. I'm able to make Dynamic Punch, and I have to hope this takes the knockout. Dynamic lands, they survive, and this could get a little bit scary. I don't know my Fire Fang Reshiram counts. Will they make it to the back-to-back Fusion Flares? They go for the crunch, they get the debuff, but thankfully we're able to outpace. I was very stressed there. I do not know my Fire Fang Reshiram counts. I just had to hope we held on, and thankfully we did. We get the Dream lead in the next match, Mimikyu into Shadow Dragonite. Dragonite's gonna stay on the field, break my disguise with a Thunder Punch, but honestly, I'm very okay with having the disguise broken here. This way, my shields are still intact, and my opponent safe switches into a Turtonator. Turtonator up energy is a pretty big problem for my backline. I don't have a strong response, so I stay in, fire off the Shadow Sneak, and then pivot my Turtonator into theirs. A small optimization that I did was I threw 2 Shadow Claws and then switched into my Turtonator. That actually transfers the Incinerate damage from the Mimikyu onto my Turtonator because damage registers 1 turn later on the new system than on the old. My opponent will put up a shield. They're looking to play for switch advantage, and I don't have an amazing way of getting rid of this Turtonator, so I decide to shield back. In hindsight, maybe shielding back was a bit of an error on my part. Maybe I could have just let it go and tried to use Mimikyu to get rid of the Turtonator, because what this is going to do is set up a pretty aggressive farm down for the Shadow Dragonite. Shadow Dragonite now has a ton of energy. I bring in the Mimikyu, I'm in -1 defense, and this Thunder Punch will actually add up quite a bit. My Mimikyu now going to be very low. My opponent pivots out in the back. They have Galarian Stunfisk, and I am in a massive amount of trouble. My Turtonator was baited out. I can get some damage with Shadow Sneak, but it won't put the Stunfisk into Dynamic Punch range. This is enough for the Earthquake. I have to respect the damage here. My opponent goes for a devastating Rock Slide bait, and unfortunately, I just don't see a path to victory anymore. I fire off Dynamic Punch. That's going to connect, but I'm not ever able to get the farm down. Even a double Iron Bash bait is not really going to do a lot for me here. Double Iron Bash will be shielded. That's the CMP tied to the Earthquake. And this is going to be Melmetal getting KO'd. Earthquake connects. Melmetal actually survives on 1 HP. I pivot into Mimikyu, racing to the Shadow Sneak, but I'm unable to get there. Rock Slide will KO my Mimikyu. Down goes Melmetal. A great team comp there from my opponent as my Melmetal melts into the dust. Upping to the final match, we get a Mirror Lead Mimikyu into Mimikyu. As before, I'm going to play this out by firing off the Shadow Sneak right away, just to test who wins Charge Attack priority. Losing Charge Attack priority in a Mimikyu mirror is quite problematic. I'm going to be no bubbling here because I know either way this move isn't going to do any damage. My opponent actually lets the Disguise break. That means I'm going to do a lot more damage per Shadow Claw. I'm going to farm up 5, switch into the Turtonator, and go for the Catch and Sneak. I wanted to keep my Mimikyu around. The Disguise is still intact, which should hopefully be pretty helpful, and my opponent brings in their own Turtonator. Is my opponent running a perfect mirror team? It is definitely possible. I was streaming these battles live on YouTube and Twitch, so it's definitely possible that my opponent saw the team, went, hey, that looks pretty fun, tried it out themselves, and ended up queuing into me. Unfortunately, if it is a mirror team, then their Melmetal is going to be a pretty big problem for me. I fire off the Shadow Sneak. I believe this should just do enough damage to KO Turtonator, but Turtonator will put up a shield. Turtonator over-farming massively. I make the Shadow Sneak. They get the catch. They save a ton of energy on Turtonator, and they reveal they are running the exact same team. They also have Melmetal. I switch my Melmetal into theirs. I have the rank 5 shiny Melmetal, so I'm never going to be winning Charge Attack priority. Unfortunately, this is a mirror match where in every single matchup, I am losing CMP. I overfarm quite a bit, firing off Dynamic Punch. Dynamic Punch picks up the knockout. I know my opponent still has a ton of energy stored on that Turtonator. Turtonator will hit the field. Incinerate lands. I fire off double Iron Bash. This will be guaranteeing the final Protect shield. I switch into Mimikyu, and I get the catch. But this catch is devastating. I have the Disguise still intact. I take no damage. The Disguise is busted. They farm down my Mimikyu with theirs, but I can bring in the Melmetal, get the Thunder Shock down, and leave with Dynamic Punch loaded. Somehow, against all odds, in a perfect mirror match where my opponent won Charge Attack priority in all the matchups, we find a way and we're able to get the win. All in all, this team ended up working out incredibly well for me. This feels like a strong, powerful climbing team that you can use throughout this week. If you're looking to rank up, this is a pretty good team to do so with. Mimikyu and Melmetal just form the absolutely perfect core. Mimikyu doesn't really have any answers in this meta, outside of basically Melmetal, which is one of the reasons why we have Melmetal on our team. Even Empoleon, which in theory should do pretty well into Mimikyu, because of that built-in Disguise having the 3rd shield, Mimikyu can actually fight back there quite decently. So, I really like this team. Turtonator is kind of just the glue that so many teams in this meta kind of get put together with. You can have a core, you throw a Turtonator on there, and you're good to go. I'm very happy that they did have Turtonator as a spawn at the regional championships during the 2026 season, as by catching those while I was casting those events, I was able to then trade during the Trade Sundays, which then became Trade Fridays later on, to end up finishing out my XLs. Because man, Turtonator, it is a wrecking ball in this meta. But if you can avoid the Turtonator, then Melmetal is just insane. Game after game, Melmetal kept just destroying endgames. This team is fun, is powerful, and I do really hope that I end up getting some better queue times in the Ultra Fantasy Cup, because oh my goodness, it's such a fun meta to play. And the queue times are the only thing that's going to make me end up switching to Great League this week, just because it's very, very difficult to find opponents. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed watching today's video, please do leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't, and an extra special thank you as always to our channel members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide to the channel is so appreciated, so thank you guys oh so very much, and until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.